Triumphant Light has seen the rise of Arceus and Dialga, absolutely taking over the meta. But in recent days, the community has rallied against that deck, and the counter decks are everywhere. And one of the best counters to Arceus and Dialga is this one right here, Gallade EX. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about Gallade EX, which is finally finding its time to shine in the current meta. Gallade is a 2-prize Pokemon with 170 HP, a stage 2, and its attack Energized Blade for 2 fighting energy to 70 damage and 20 more damage for each energy on your opponent's active Pokemon. So if they've got 3 energy on them, you are doing 130 damage. And in particular with Arceus and Dialga, Arceus, you're also hitting Arceus for weakness, so you're one-shotting Arceus. And if you're hitting Dialga, they have upwards of 4 energy sometimes on that Dialga, and you are absolutely crushing them with that on. So Gallade can be an absolutely devastating attacker to any deck that runs a lot of energy. Darkrai's another one where with the Rocky Helmet, they swing into you, you swing for 130 on them, and they take damage from the Rocky Helmet, and then they're just absolutely cooked. So Gallade, just a very strong attacker right now. We are evolving up to Gallade with the Ralts and Kirlia from Space Time Smackdown. And we're not using the genetic Apex ones because the Space Time Smackdown ones have a colorless attack cost, meaning we can play Fighting Energy to power up the Gallade, while also using Ralts and Kirlia, which are Psychic type Pokemon. Ralts has the attack teleport, which allows you to move from the active to the bench, and that allows you to get something else in the active while keeping the energy on the Ralts so you can build up to your Gallade a little quicker. Kirlia, not really too much to speak of, but 1 energy slap for 20 is fine. And then our other attackers in the deck, Hitmonlee is absolutely amazing. Stretch Kick lets you do 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And not only does this give you the opportunity to get incremental damage on bigger Pokemon that you can Cyrus up later, it also can just help you take out smaller Pokemon entirely. Magikarp goes down in 1 hit to Hitmonlee, which is awesome. But primarily here, Hitmonlee is here to tag targets for Gallade to knock out later. And then our secondary sort of emergency attacker is Marshadow, where for a fighting and a colorless, you do 40 damage, and if one of your Pokemon was knocked out on a previous turn, you do an additional 60 for 100 total. Marshadow is a very efficient attacker in this deck, and because it's oftentimes difficult to get 2 rarely you're going to get 2 Gallades set up, Marshadow can oftentimes be that intermediate attacker somewhere in the middle of the game, or as the end game finisher even if it really comes down to it. For trainer cards, we've got a lot of the usual suspects here. Professor's Research helps us draw 2 cards. Cyrus is incredible in this deck, allowing us to gust up an opposing bench Pokemon that has damage counters on it. And because we've got Hitmonlee in the deck, you can pretty much gust up whatever you want. Mars is an awesome card from Space Time Smackdown that hasn't been seeing a lot of play just because deck space is so tight. 20 cards is not a lot to work with, but this deck can fit it, and Mars is incredible. It forces your opponent to shuffle their hand into their deck and then draw cards equal to the number of prizes they have remaining. So if they've taken 2 prizes, you play Mars, now they're stuck with 1 card, giving you an amazing opportunity to come back. Sabrina is not as targeted of a gusting option as Cyrus, but oftentimes this can still be an absolutely beneficial card, forcing your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. And sometimes it's going to be great because they don't have anything else and they have to force that other Pokemon on the bench into the active, or sometimes you just want to get the opponent out of the active spot, that opposing Pokemon out of the active spot, more than you want something specific in. So Sabrina's still an incredibly clutch card to have a one of here. 2 copies of Pokeball to get a random basic Pokemon from our deck, 1 copy of Pokemon Communication to switch a Pokemon from our hand with a random one from the deck, making it a little easier to build up our Gallade, and then 2 copies of Rocky Helmet, which forces our opponent to take 2 damage when they swing into our Pokemon that have the Rocky Helmet on. In particular, Gallade's damage breakpoints at times can be a little awkward, and Rocky Helmet's going to fix the math in a lot of different situations. This deck is incredibly well positioned for the current meta. It does counter Arceus and Dialga quite well because because you are hitting incredibly hard on those high energy decks, and even something like a Darkrai is going to have a problem with you because of how hard you are swinging. Darkrai is a Pokemon that needs to hold 3 energy, at which point you're 10 damage away from one-hit KOing them, and Rocky Helmet can oftentimes be enough for that finish. And on top of that, just a really nice package of attackers. Gallade, your heavy hitter, Marshadow, your secondary heavy hitter, and then Hitmonlee is great in the early game for all of that bench sniping. So incredibly powerful deck right now, ton of fun to play, and if you've got the cards for this deck, by all means give this one a go. We're going first here, and we've got just the Ralts, and hopefully we can get some other Pokemon down, or our opponent's playing Sudowoodo, and that's kind of good for us. Oh, we've got the full evolution line right away. Gonna throw the Rocky Helmet on because they can attack early, but one of the good things for us is that Sudowoodo only does 20 damage unless that active Pokemon is an EX, and we're not going to put an EX out anytime soon, so not a particularly effective attacker in this specific matchup. And them swinging for 20, and they're only going to take 20 damage back with the Rocky Helmet, so not the most ideal situation for them. We do have a second Ralt, but I don't put that down because I don't want them to Sabrina the second Kirlia or the second Ralts into the active and then smack it without any consequence. So we're going to hold on to that for now and just start to build our Gallade here. And still not going to play the Ralts. I don't think we have to at this point in time. We can just get in an easy smack. And I think once we get Gallade set up, then we can start building up the second one. Should we be fortunate enough to get a second Gallade, which generally speaking, I don't normally see that happen. Sorry, one sec. Okay, we're fine. We're fine. Yeah, sorry, just got a message from my wife. Hope. Yeah, shout outs to all the wives, husbands, partners out there. If you are in a partnership, a marriage, a relationship, whatever term you want to use for it, man, they're pretty great, but not, man, I'm getting a weird tangent here. But I'm also of that mindset that, like, if you are single and you want to be single and live your life that way, like, absolutely do that too. You are not under any sort of obligation to partner up with anybody if you don't want to. And that seems like more and more people are taking that option, and yeah, that's awesome. Oh, banged on the desk. And yeah, they get their Credidos down. And yeah, we've got the... Yeah, a little concerned because the Rampardos does a lot of damage here, right? They are going... And plus the Lucario's out, that 130 becomes 150. And we kind of need... Based on our current board state, we need to hit Kirlia right here. And we don't. We get Research instead. So let's go and draw some cards. And then hopefully thin the deck and find some pieces we need. Hitmonlee's, no. But let's thin the deck to make it a little easier to find the Kirlia. We get the Marshadow out. And here we correctly play the Hitmonlee to try and get that Kirlia. If we'd played the Marshadow. Like, Marshadow is a not bad plan B here, right? We swing for 100 damage. That potentially is enough. So we Energize Blade, swing into the Rampardos for 90. They've got 60 HP left, and the math is very funny here, because right now, if they swing into us with the Rampardos, they are actually knocking themselves out as well, right? That attack does 50 damage to themselves if they KO, and we've got the Rocky Helmet on for a total of 70 damage, at which point we have the Marshadow here as well, which is ready to swing for 100 on our turn. And I don't think there's anything they can bench right now that can withstand a 100 attack. So if they swing right now, they're cooked. Just kind of funny how things work out. Rocky Helmet, kind of the MVP here. Gallade still did some really big damage here on the Rampardos, which is a very tanky 2-prize Pokemon, and only drops a single prize and swings insanely hard. Such a good attacker. And probably the most popular counter deck to Arceus right now is this Rampardos. And we're going to bring in the Marshadow. It's our turn, and they know it. They just put in the Fossil, which is going to get absolutely blasted. And even if we didn't have the Revenge attack going that activates the extra 60 damage, we would have knocked that out anyway. But our opponent knew that they were cooked on that. So, yeah, building up to that Gallade and getting the big swing in was enough to... And yeah, I think it's just really funny. The Rocky Helmet there, kind of the MVP, being able to land a little extra damage on that Rampardos so that we were also KOing that in the process of them KOing us. GG's. We're going first in this one. We are up against Palkia. Not sure if this is Palkia with Manaphy or just Palkia 18 trainers, but this is a little bit of an awkward spot to be in. We are not attacking the Palkia in the active with the Hitmonlee, but we do get a Ralts down, which is great. We can just slowly build our oh man, I'm blanking here. Our Gallade in the background, and we are doing some incremental damage with the Hitmonlee, even if we're not swinging directly to it, because of the Rocky Helmet getting in that additional damage. And because our opponent is, right, they're playing Palkia, and the Slash is only doing 30 damage up front, like, we can tank 3 hits, and we're doing 60 damage in return. And if we can build up our Gallade in time, then we should be good, right? So let's go. Kirlia up, and we will put some energy on the Kirlia in case maybe they hit double heads on a Misty, and then we have to go in with the Gallade at that point. How are you guys enjoying Triumphant Light so far? With the smaller sets, it feels kind of weird in the sense that, like, I have almost all the cards. I'm only missing, I think, like 2 holos in terms of the main set. And we've got like another month and a half to go versus Space Time Smackdown was so short. We only had that for a month and it was 2 sets or like 2 different packs. And I know there's all sorts of logistical reasons for why that's the case, but I kind of like it when I wish they were flipped around in the sense of like having 2 months for Space Time Smackdown and 1 month for this. All right, so we get Gallade up. We get the Rocky Helmet on there too in case they try and Sabrina us. And we don't have any switch outs in this deck. No X speeds, no Leaf. So we'll just go put some energy on the Hitmonlee, and we can pepper the Palkia on the bench with a stretch kick. 30 damage, softening that up for later as well. And where are things going from here? Our opponent taking their sweet time, which is fine. You got to think through your moves, and curious to see, do they... Okay, they go in with the Palkia and just building towards that. Playing the Irida, which allows you to heal 40 damage off any Pokemon with water energy on it. And now they don't even swing in. Now, this is... I'm guessing they're anticipating us bringing in the Gallade, which we don't want to bring in Gallade right now. Yes, we could hit them pretty hard, but they're going to hit us hard back, and we kind of don't have a plan B after that. So... don't want to do that, though we are at risk of being Sabrina'd here. And we get a Marshadow instead. Though if we get Sabrina'd, that can be a problem too. And for some reasons I didn't realize, I'm looking at this hand now, and we really should have played Cyrus here and gusted up the Palkia on the bench. Look, I'm looking at it right now in the gameplay. Like, should I gust this up? I'm thinking it through. And ideally, yeah, I should have played the Cyrus here. And spoilers, I don't. I play Stretch Kick. And yeah, we should have played Cyrus there to gust up that Palkia, where they were going to have a hard time getting that out of the active. And we could then soften up the Palkia with all the energy. But now they play Sabrina, and now we're going to lose the Marshadow. And because in this moment, like playing it, I totally forgot that Palkia's big attack also does 20 damage to the bench. We're also going to lose the Hitmonlee in one go. So this is not ideal, but I think we're still in a pretty good spot. We're still doing tons of damage, and they are not. Unless they get really lucky on Misty right now, it's going to be really tough for them to deal with us swinging for as much as we do. And we make things worse with Mars, where we send their 4-card hand back into the deck and give them just 1 card to deal with. We are not swinging for full damage here. Or we're only swinging for 90, but like at this point, they're going to be in big trouble. Yeah, they play the Misty to try and... Yeah, we'll see if they can turn this around here. They do not. And that's going to be really tough because we can tank 5 hits, right? We can tank 5 slashes. And we only need like 3 swings at the moment to finish them off. So the math ain't mathin' here for our opponent, who's fighting valiantly here. And we go and chip away at them a little more. That Rocky Helmet coming in so clutch. And there's no reason to bench anything else. And we do take the big swing here, knocking out the Palkia. Yes, we could have gusted up the other one, but I don't think there's any point either. I think if anything, it would have been worse to go after the one on the bench. Yeah, right now they have no cards as well. So like, yeah, they just Mars us down to 1. If they swing into us, that brings them down to 90, at which point they will lose. So they don't want to attack us right this second. The Rocky Helmet proving incredibly valuable here. And right now, their only course of action is praying that that top card is a Misty and they hit 2 heads, or else they lose. And unfortunately for them, it is not. So I could have played that a little more cleanly in the sense that I should have gusted up the second Palkia before they got to 4 energy on there, which would have slowed them down even further, forced them to burn a switch card or something before they could get off their big attack. And instead, I got greedy. I kept the other Palkia in the active and then opened the door for them to play Sabrina. And yes, they didn't hit my Gallade, which is I really wanted to protect that for the end of the game. They were able to knock out the Marshadow and the Hitmonlee, take 2 prizes. So that was not ideal. Don't do that. But regardless, Gallade is a stage 2 Pokemon with a lot of HP, and it can swing for very solid damage. And it was going to be a really tough go for our opponent to get through our Gallade, especially when they burned their big attack on the Marshadow in order to take those 2 prizes. I don't necessarily hate that for them going after the Marshadow in that way, but it really put them at a deficit where they were praying for Misties to hit in order to get through the tough Gallade, which they weren't able to this time. GG's. This one, we are up against a Garchomp deck. Okay, so I will say, like, I don't see Garchomp all that much in the tournament scene. Like, when I'm looking at the results, I don't see Garchomp anywhere, but when I play online, there's a lot of people playing Garchomp. And I know that the online tournament scene is not the same as the ladder. There are way more people that are playing this game on the ladder and aren't as in tune with the meta, and that's fine. And you don't necessarily have to play the top tier decks in order to win in Pocket, especially with the player base being a little more casual here. And I find that people are playing more stuff for funsies, though there are a lot of people still playing the competitive decks as well. And Garchomp seems decent. It feels like a card that, you know, since it came out in, it's Triumphant Light where we got Garchomp EX, it feels like a card that could get better later, whether that is from getting new support or like just the meta shifting to make it a little more favorable. But I have been seeing a lot of Garchomp of late, and that can be a tough matchup for us here, especially with their ability to snipe. So we get our Kirlia up, and we're going to put the Rocky Helmet on the Hitmonlee, and we get down a second Ralts, just in case, give us some Sabrina protection, and we gust up the fancy promo Gibble and snipe the one with the energy, where that puts them behind the curve just a little bit, unless they have a switch out, at which point then this doesn't matter. But at least we force them to burn some sort of resource, whether it's an X speed or a leaf, in order to get the Gibble out. But nope, they decide to just go in with the Gabite, like evolve that one up, and they can still swing, right? They can still swing for 30 damage with the Gabite, and if they turn that into Garchomp, then they're still getting 50 snipe. They get their Marshadow down, and they leave the door open here, right? They said, okay, that's fine. We are fine with our Gibble getting sniped out, and we only have a Cyrus here, and there's no point. I don't think there's any point in... I guess we could Gust, right? If you bring the Gibble into the active and you do some chip damage on the Gabite, that isn't necessarily the worst. But our opponent has Garchomp now, and they could swing. Yeah, they can start doing 50 snipe. And at this point, I would be targeting the Kirlia. The Kirlia is one Gallade away from being able to start swinging for big damage. And if they go after the Kirlia, then we're cooked. There's not really much we can do outside of that. And they go for the snipe attack, and they go after the Ralts. No. Okay. We get a Mars. Our hand still sucks. The Kirlia is still very much a sitting duck. If they take that out, then we're dead. We could snipe the Marshadow. I end up going with the Riolu. I'm betting that they don't have the Lucario, or hoping they don't have the Lucario, so that we get an easy KO there. They have the Lucario. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, now it's going to take 4 hits to take out that Lucario. And they decide once again to go after the Ralts. Like, okay, so they get a point, right? That's fine. I wonder if my opponent thinks, like, does Rocky... I don't think Rocky Helmet works if you snipe the bench. I don't think so. Because I would swing into... Let's go and double check that. I'm going to pull that card up. And deck list and Rocky Helmet. No, it has to be in the active spot. So, like, Rocky Helmet's not protecting me right now. At least it's not protecting the Kirlia. So one of the big plays that just happened there, I Cyrused up the Lucario so that I could swing into the Garchomp. I should have been better prepared for that. That was a big moment of the match. So gusting up the Lucario specifically so I could get 30 damage on the Garchomp was going to help our math here, where between... Yeah, if they now decide to... They still have the opportunity. It helps. Like, right now, again, even with the 3 energy, I would have been sniping the Kirlia here. But instead, our opponent goes for the big attack on the Hitmonlee. And they knock out the Hitmonlee, but they've left this Kirlia in the entire time. And yes, granted, like, I still have to find a Gallade, and we hit Professor's Research, so we've got a couple more opportunities here. And we get Pokeball and Gallade. And now we come in, and because they have so much energy on, we're swinging for 130 damage. And with that incremental chip from the Hitmonlee and the Rocky Helmet, we are able to knock out the Gallade. So we'll take that win. I mean, in light of where things played out, I think it was a wise move to go and gust up the Lucario so we could get that initial damage in on the Garchomp, and look, that was no guarantee. I still think that the biggest mistake, or the reason that we won that game, is because our opponent didn't target the Kirlia. And granted, they don't know that we don't have the Gallade in multiple turns, but I really would have attacked the Kirlia there to not give us that option. But instead, they softened up other targets instead, leaving the door open for us to even have the opportunity to get that big swing in at the end. So just as the Garchomp player, like, definitely figure out what your prize mapping, that's kind of the term of, like, picking the right targets to KO. And in this instance, our opponent picked the wrong ones, leaving the door open. And it happens. We all make mistakes, and I hope that our opponent is able to learn from that, and I hope that you watching learn from that, and that I learn from that as well. But yeah, in context of what the opponent was giving us, getting the Lucario into the active so that we could soften up the Garchomp and make that final play possible was a good choice. GG's. There we go. That's a look at Gallade EX in the Triumphant Light meta. And I think Gallade's a really awesome deck that kind of showcases that sometimes decks take time to get good. Sometimes it's a matter of the community finally paying attention to what the card can do. Sometimes it's just new cards that will help a deck out. This one has no real new cards, but the biggest thing is the shift in the meta. In particular, the rise of Dialga and Arceus make this a much more dangerous deck because it's got some really heavy hitters that it can take out with its punishing Energized Blade attack. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.